So we did it. We have officially made it to the finale of Ted Lasso's second season. At the end of this, I will give my overall thoughts on the season as a whole because I think it's been very strong, but I cannot believe that, 12 episodes into a show, they managed to wrap everything up perfectly. That's almost impossible to see because we always kind of tie it on to the next thing. And there's the tie-ons in there, but if this was the end, which I don't think it is, and we know we're getting a third season, so it's not the end, but if this was the end, it is a finale. It plays out like a finale. It shows the future in a way that doesn't necessarily need to be explored, but if it is, it makes sense too. I think this is a really good episode, and I cannot wait to get into it. So last time around, we saw that Nate kind of blew the lid off of the Ted panic attack situation. He told Trent Crimm of The Independent. Trent wrote the article, it published, and now we see the aftermath of that. So Ted is basically walking down the streets and everyone's looking at him a different way, but it's in this kind of interesting way. And it's pretty much personified of this old man's if my dad had a panic attack in Normandy, we'd all be speaking German. But immediately after that, he says to Ted, just do the job, you'll be okay. Which is just kind of everyone initially is what an asshole, what a coward for having a panic attack, but it's that's a real issue that we are literally seeing today. Look at some of the Olympic athletes, or just basic, anybody working in the sports industry, there's that pressure put on them, and that can add on to a panic attack. We saw it, especially in the Olympics with Simone Biles, which is yeah, I get it. That's realistic. That's something that would happen. So I like the way that everyone's just kind of there to encourage him in a positive way, while still being I wouldn't get the panic attack. Well, you're also not in the position of Ted. So I think that's really cool to see. We also see at the beginning that there's three people who message Ted, which are arguably the three most important women in his life. Rebecca says, screw the haters. The Dr. Sharon just gives him the replay of what they said. Don't let them affect you. They don't matter. And he gets a message from his wife. And, she's genuinely concerned, but she's also just reaching out to make sure he's okay, not looking for anything longer than that. And when Ted texts, kind of wanting to continue the conversation, she shuts it down. Now, I don't know if Michelle's the most important woman in Ted's life. I think we could argue that it might be Rebecca now, but I think that is the message that said okay, I can get through this. I can manage this stuff and get through everything. I liked that scene. I think it's very powerful. I like that, all the other coaches are in support of it. Of course, we'll get to the stuff with Nate later. But Beard right away knows it's Nate. He just got that inkling for it. And, Roy's kind of indifferent to it, which I enjoy to see too. But even all the players, all the top staffing at Richmond, everybody is in support of Ted, which is the opposite reaction of what Nate wanted. And I think that's just really cool to see. And we get the press conference after the game, which we'll get to the game after. But I just like that press conference. Ted uses it as a platform to bring up mental health in sports. And it doesn't become yeah, you think I'm the only person to have a panic attack here? I'm probably not. And I think that's realistic. That's honest. And it's a great use of your platform. You have a ton of people watching this show that aren't fanatic sports fans. So they're not going to watch every game for their favorite sport or know the players or the teams or anything. You have an audience that is understanding of what the sports life is like, but also shows the mental strain on everything, which is kind of literally what we've been doing this entire season. We see the way it affected Danny and Isaac and Sam and Jamie, all the players. We see even Collins has I'm a capable and smart man, and you just see yeah, everybody's being affected by this. Roy's affected by it. Nate is affected by this. This idea of mental health in sports is a big theme throughout this, and it makes sense. It's very believable. We'll come back to this stuff with Ted at the end here when we get to some of the stuff that involves Nate, because I got a lot to say on that and it's very important. But we have a couple of smaller stories here. We see that Jamie actually apologizes to Roy for what he said to Keely, which is big steps for both of them, because you think Roy's going to knock his head in, but he doesn't. He just leaves and he accepts that there's something going on. There's okay. I think that's kind of impressive. Jamie does not get a lot to do in this finale. I understand that. He has one big moment that he eventually gives to Danny, which I like to see. And then we see some other stuff. So Keely, honestly, in the past 2 episodes, she has played a huge role because she is an important character. I like what they do here. So Keely gets this alert that the PR company she's repping for Banter is hey, you should open your own PR firm. and she decides she's going to do that. But the big question is, how is she going to say bye to Rebecca? Like, Rebecca gave her the opportunity to do this job. How is she going to be able to say no? And in a great moment, she says goodbye to Rebecca. They both start crying on the couch, and it's great. I mean, it's weird to like talk about the relationship of the two female characters from like my perspective, because like I've never been in that situation, so I don't know. I think I've seen a lot of talk online about how it's nice to see these two women who aren't competing against each other, who can just be friends and accept each other's faults and like their accomplishments and support each other in that way. I think this moment here with the two of them crying on the couch, like, oh, hire your best friend, it's going to be the best decision you ever made. That is just the perfect display of that feeling, it's just so good to see that, and it just makes for some great stuff. Juno Temple, Hannah Waddingham, I can't sing their praises enough. I know Hannah won the award. I wouldn't be surprised if Juno pulled it in this year, because she played some interesting roles. She definitely felt broken at times, felt scared at times, and I really like that connection. More stuff with Keely too is that we see the Vanity Fair article. She gets like an early sampling of it, and as they're looking through it, Roy realizes he's not in any of the pictures, which he says it doesn't bother him. But when we later go on to a scene where we do the Diamond Dog stuff, which I love this scene because Roy's kind of like, maybe I'll be a Diamond Dog now. He was like, I wish I was in the pictures. She just looked so good without me. And when I'm there, you could see I'd probably bring down the way things look a little bit. Interesting take for Roy, because we haven't like really delved into that side of him. Not like the feeling stuff. We obviously know how Roy's feeling, but just like the emotional weight that he doesn't feel like he's good enough for Keely, which is very interesting to see, considering he's been very competent throughout everything. Having that be the one thing he's scared of, I think works really well for his character. And in that scene too, we get another nail in the Nate coffin, where Nate's like, I kissed Keely when we were looking at Suits, and Roy doesn't even react. She's like, yeah, she told me. I get it. You made a mistake. But he's like upset that Roy doesn't want to do anything to hurt him. He wanted to beat the crap out of Jamie. He's not going to do anything to Nate. And that is, I think, another notch just for Nate to be like, okay, they don't even respect me as a sexual threat to Keely. I'm like, okay, I buy that. I buy that a lot. I cannot wait to talk about Nate. We'll get there in a bit here. Another small thing that comes up that we kind of saw being teased earlier on. Rupert sold his shares to Rebecca of what he had left of Richmond. We saw him talking to Nate in the episode where Rebecca's father passed away. This time around, he used all the money he got, and he bought himself a new football house. I think it was West Ham is the one he got, who was their competitor. And Rebecca's like, okay, there's a new challenge to come play. So we kind of like set up this arc that we got our villain now. You know, Rupert's been like the fiend behind the scenes doing all this stuff. Now he's out in the open. We see what his tactics are going to be. Now we can strike him on the schedule laid out. We know what to do with Rupert now. That's pretty cool. I think that's a really interesting place to take it. Not what I was expecting, but I think it works really well nonetheless. I'm just going to say it. I love this episode. I think it's just a strong outing for a finale of this show. So this time around, we have managed to scrape our way to our final match, and if we win or tie in this match, we make it back up to, I believe, it's the Premier League, which we are hoping we can get to do. And are we going to be able to accomplish that? It looks like in the last few minutes, it is 2-0 for the opposing team. Richmond does not look like they're going to be able to score, which when they have their, like, I think it's just like a game time, a timeout or something, they go to talk and like, are we going to run Nate's false nine play? We do an emphasis to call it Nate's play. So if it succeeds, Nate gets all the credit. But if it fails, it gets all the credit as failing. And it's all on Nate. Everything kind of rests on Nate. And Ted is building it up to be Nate's fault, in a sense. That is how Nate interprets it. If that's the case or not, who really knows? So our team looks down. They look like a Renaissance painting of melancholy, as Ted calls it. And basically it's like, do we trust Nate's play enough to actually succeed? Nate doesn't think it can. He doesn't think these players have the capability to do it. He's yelling at them. He is screaming at them. Nate is fully committed to the dark side at this point. He's gone. We don't have Nate anymore. Can we do the false nine? I think it's Jan Maas who stands up and says, yes, we could do it. We have the capability to do it. So The team kind of like huddles in to do like a Richmond on free, but Isaac doesn't stand up to be the support. He goes up to the believe sign. He touches the sign. Every one of the players does the same. Everyone's watching from the background, and in that scene, Nate is done. We lost Nate. He's done. And we see, before we get to like the remainder of the actual game, we get I think what was the climactic moment of the entire season. The show might have actually been building to this. This is when Nate and Ted finally confront each other. And this is where Ted's like, you're mad at me. I don't know why. What is this about? And we'll talk about Nick Mohammed here because I want to talk about some of the stuff he said. This is hard to do in a show like this where everything is built to be like this positive energy thing where everyone supports each other. They love each other. When you have to play the opposite of that and be the guy who starts off as the sincere, heartfelt, quiet guy to slowly build up to become your Darth Vader type, that's hard to do. So Nate just goes, Ted, you told me I was special. I was the most important person in the world. You gave me everything here. And then suddenly you left me and you left me to drown. And you just put me in this situation where I couldn't keep up and the world started to move on without me. Where is the picture I gave you for Christmas, like of us at the first game? You don't even have it in the office, but we know that Ted has it by his nightside bed where he has it next to a picture of his son too, because that's what he feels about Nate. It's just like another person he helped bring up to this level. And he's like, Ted, it's all bullshit. You are bullshit. Everything you do is a joke and you don't help anybody. I earned my way to this position. You wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for me and everybody else who makes you look good. And he just leaves. And I buy it. I really think, obviously, this was going to be a hard scene to do because how do you make Nate's turn convincing? And I think it works that if you look at like Nate kind of being like the victimized villain of this season, where throughout the first season too, the players talk down to him. Then he becomes a coach after he speaks his mind from day one. And even Nick Mohammed said this, from day one, he gets a joy out of talking down to the players. He finds his voice through Ted. But he enjoys talking down to the players when he's just telling them, like, you're shit at this thing, do better here, do better there. And then all the other little notches that I might put up, like, the list here that Nick Mohammed put out on his, like, Twitter of all the stuff he said. But it's just, like, the little things like Ted not taking him seriously as a big man, or Roy not wanting to punch him after kissing Keely, just, like, not getting the coffee machine because he's not a player. All these little things, or I guess you could even say, like, the episode where he tried to get, like, the seat at the window view for his parents. It's all these little things affecting him where he isn't being taken as a serious man. And as I'm sure a lot of you will know, if you are a victim or you are bullied, you will sometimes become the bully because it's the easiest way to take out your frustrations is to do the thing that was done to you. The cycle continues. And we see Nate get beat down a lot this season and this show, so the fact that he would beat people down too after he's given the position of power, it's not surprising. I commend Nick Mohammed for like letting himself do that because I would be scared to do it. I think in a show like this, if you were said you have to kind of go down you're the only person in the sense going down this dark path, it's scary and it would be hard to accomplish because the world's going to turn on you in an instant as your character and you as the actor for making those choices. But he makes it work. I love the subtle way throughout the episode, or I think it's throughout the season actually, Nate's hair, he stops dyeing it if he was dyeing it and slowly starts to become more and more gray, just showing like either the stress and frustration he is facing or the anger he's facing. He's just like, I'm commanding this idea of myself so I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not, which is very powerful. Ted doesn't even try to apologize or anything. He's just like, I'm sorry if you felt that. It's done. Nate's gone. We continue the rest of the match. We somehow manage to get our 2 goals. Sam gets a goal in here, and then we have like one penalty shot from Jamie. But Jamie says, nope, I'm not going to do it. He gives it to Danny, closing off that arc where Danny was at the beginning of the season, kills the dog by kicking the ball. Now we see that after a really cool mini story where, Higgins is picking the new dogs. I think it was like Tina Fey Hound and what's the other one? Mary Lou something. They pick the new mascot. Danny sees it. He's like, all right, the cycle continues. Football is life. He gets the goal. They tie the game. They're going back to the Premier League. Great. I think that's really cool. I think it works really well for the show. It's very strong in that scene. Nate's play does work, but he just leaves, and we see what happens to Nate at the end of this. And we also see the resolution to Sam potentially leaving to go join the Nigerian team. Or no, it's just the African team, right? Or is it the Nigerian team? I can't remember. Again, I love Sam Richardson. I think him in this role works really well because you're like, this guy's charming, he's cool, he's a billionaire that we can relate to and love. Then suddenly, Sam says, I'm not going to go. My time at Richmond is not done. I still have things to do here. Whatever reasons those are, we don't specify if it's the players or Rebecca. But I think it's that scene we see with him earlier on where he is seeing like the guy in the Obisanya jersey. He's like, okay, I know where my place is and it's here. And I can build something here that I'm proud of. And we get some great just angry acting from Sam Richardson, which I don't know if he's going to come back as a villain. I'd hope he does. But he's just like, you will never play for a Nigerian team. You'll never come over here. I will buy your family house. I will poop in every room and then I will burn it down. And he's just getting so aggressively angry in the way only Sam Richardson can. I think that was great. I love Sam Richardson. He was the perfect foil for this small arc here with Sam, where it's like, can we do something in this moment to give Sam some clarity or some ideas to play with? That was really fun to see. And when he storms off just pretending to defecate on the mannequin, it's great. And it works. And that's everything that this needed to be. I thought that was very strong. So Sam stays. He kind of goes to tell Rebecca, but Ted's in there too. And he's just like, well, he talks directly to Ted, but it's clearly aimed at Rebecca. And he's just like, I wish I could say it was for you that I was staying, but I feel the universe is telling me I have to be here for whatever reason that's going to be. So we're not explicitly saying the Sam and Rebecca storyline is done. We're just kind of saying maybe the universe is going to tell them if they should be together or not, which I know there's people who are saying it's Ted and Rebecca in the end. I still don't think that's the case. Ted still loves his wife. I think that's clear earlier on when he's trying to communicate if she is moving on, like having a late night or early morning with some other person. And Ted's whole thing with Sassy makes me believe I don't think it's going to go the route of Ted and Rebecca. I'm not saying it's going to be Sam and Rebecca. I'm not saying it's going to be Sassy and Ted. I just don't think those two are going to end up together. I could see that storyline ending that Ted is going to get some, like, you know, shares in the Richmond company. He's going to become maybe like a co-manager with Rebecca. I could see that being the case, but a romantic relationship, I'm not saying it's off the table, but I believe it'd be too easy and they'd go a different route. So maybe, who knows? Anything could happen in that third season. So Sam is staying. We see Nate leaves. Interesting stuff happening there. And we saw when Ted was giving the press conference that there was one seat that was absent, and that was Trent Crimm of the Independent. Well, we cut to the end of the game when Ted's leaving, and we learned that Trent Crimm of the Independent was fired because he revealed a source. And now he is pretty much doing some freelance stuff. He's just like, I want to find a new place for myself, wherever that takes me. I don't know, but I'm going to do it. That's great. We got kind of a confirmation that Trent and Sharon are going to play big roles in the third season. Well, bigger roles than what they have. I wonder if we're going to see maybe Trent's going to take over a position at Richmond. I could see that being something that would happen, but I could also see if he's going to start his own maybe like website or, you know, blog kind of thing, because he could do it. So he's no longer Trent Crimm of the Independent. He is just Trent Crimm Independent. That's a great way to end it. I thought that was very strong, very fun. And that is pretty much like the main stuff that happens in this episode. We do get a couple of just like, I'm going to say teases for what's coming up. We see 5 days later, we see that Roy has kind of like planned a special trip for Keely where they're going to go away for a couple weeks and just kind of like get their bearings again together. But Keely's like, I can't go. I have to stay here and work. And Roy's immediate response is, well, you break it up with me then, aren't you? Which, it works for Roy. We've kind of set up here with like the stuff with the photo shoot that he's insecure. He realizes, like, Nate and Jamie both find you attractive. You have history with Jamie. He's kind of insecure about that stuff. And he also said, you know, in the last episode, I didn't say I wasn't married, but I didn't say anything else. He's insecure about his relationship with Keely, and he thinks this is the breakup. But she's like, when you come back, if you go on that trip, I will still love you. Will she? Are we going to see that maybe in those 6 weeks something changed and she was potentially doing something with maybe Jamie or another person? But we did get the resolution with Jamie and Roy, so I don't think it's going to be that. It could be something else. Interesting take. I wonder if Roy is going to come back with a new perspective on things. We cut to, I think it's 3 weeks later. Sam has bought a restaurant. He is going to open up this Nigerian restaurant in next to the club. Kind of cool. A fun story. But then we cut to 2 months later. We see that Nate is working with Rupert, and Nate has become the head coach, I'm going to assume, for West Ham's new team. Fully committing to the black suit and gray hair, literally becoming the villain. Makes sense. It's Nate's arc. He is always going to go here. This is where he was destined to go. He was beaten down too much to not become this guy. And I think it works. I think it's very authentic and it's cool. And that is pretty much the wrap up for this season. Strong stuff, great character moments, and overall I really like this episode. But this season in particular, I think it's stronger than the first season. The characters have more to do. We are delving into darker stuff with like death and anxiety than we did the first season, and you see like the actual toll that playing this sport takes on the entire team, not just the people behind the scenes, but the actual players themselves. There's some depth here and some scary things going on that are really fascinating to see and understand, and I really like what we're doing with that. Again, Sudeikis, Goldstein, Waddingham, they all won the Emmys for a reason. Now I'm gonna say those might have been like slightly straight of what we're seeing in this season. Not that their performances in the first season were bad, but seeing the first couple episodes of this season, you really see where they're strong here. I would not be surprised if we get a Keely and Nate Emmy win next year. I would love to see that too. We gave a lot for Coach Beard to do in one episode, which was cool to see. Everybody had some moments here that worked. The chemistry was fun. The story was as intriguing as ever. And it's the perfect middle half for what could be a great 3-season arc. Would I love to see Ted Lasso continue into 5, 6, 7 seasons? Of course. But if we get 3 solid seasons of this man dealing with the anxiety of leaving his wife, coming halfway across the country, and have the pretty much the entire country support his anxiety and grow from it. You know, we see this brilliant woman who took over this company from her ex-husband. She turned it into this like prestigious team. I think those storylines coming together make for great television, and this season was incredibly fun. I enjoyed seeing what we did here. I loved everything about this, and this episode was fantastic. This is a great finale, one of the best finales for a season like this, where it's like it wraps up. If we never saw anything again, we get where all the characters go. Nate went to the dark side, Sam found why he wants to say, and we saw that Roy is going to deal with his insecurities but get the support he needs from Keely. We see that Ted gets his conclusion. He's like, okay, the world supports me. I'm now going to become this face of dealing with mental health and anxiety in sports. We see that Rebecca's like, well, I have to let my best friend move on, but I've become comfortable in that situation. We see that Higgins is like, I picked a dog. I got my office back. The world is great. I'm loving it. Jamie has made peace with everybody. Beard has had his big moment, and he's just gone back to his normal self. Everybody has their conclusion, and it works really well for everything we've been seeing. And this show is very strong. So that is my review of the finale to Ted Lasso's 2nd season. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.